is to prevent childhood diseases in children, such as measles, rubella, poliomyelitis, tetanus, and diphtheria. The main reason behind immunization is to prevent kids from catching childhood illnesses, which are not only hard to live with, the child gets seriously ill, and the fact that there may be some important sequence to it that may injure his health permanently.
Population groups.
Counselors tell us that all classes are open.
The report suggests that students who attend Sequoia Junior High School in West Dallas have a harder time in school than those who attend Ewell D. Walker Middle School in North Dallas. Sequoia students have an average annual family income of less than $4,000, with parental education stopping at the 9th grade. While at Walker Middle School, the average family income is almost $23,000, with parents who have at least 2 years of college. School Superintendent Nolan Estes told me why whites as a group consistently outscore Mexican Americans on tests who outscore blacks.
Because of motivation, because of interest in the home and education, because of experiences that are provided by the family, because of their expectations of their children, their interest in their education, their concern for education in the total community. All of these things go to make up what we call the environment and apparently have great impact on the child's ability to achieve.
After waiting 2 months, should we determine that the board is not serious about taking corrective action, we will file charges under Title IX with the U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, which administers Title IX, which will then conduct an intensive investigation.
What does environment have to do with achievement? Estes says, however, that he doesn't like to compare the achievement of Dallas school students with other big city school districts.
One of the reasons that we prefer not to use big city school districts is because only 28% of the population in the big cities is minority. And as you know, we have about 50% minority in our school district. Therefore, to compare our school district with the big city norm would be somewhat misleading.
School administrators think that parental and community involvement is the way to help the low socioeconomic achiever. So the district's task now is to convince those parents of those children that educational motivation is the way out of poverty for their children and their children. For Channel 8 News on the Move, this is June Gray at the School Administration Building.
Thank you very much. First of all, I noted in the news media that Mr. Scholkopf made a so-called tongue-in-cheek comment that an era of prosperity in Dallas had ended with the election of Wes Wise. I have a tongue-in-cheek reply, and that is that I just may have to keep Mr. Scholkopf in his misery by running for still another term as mayor in 1975. But this is, I suppose, part of politics, and I do think that perhaps you have been treated here in this class to a sort of a typical individual political personality clash that is part and parcel of the democratic process, and it's not really a bad one at all. The art, of course, is to take this kind of a divergent makeup and focus it back down into a solid, aggressive, progressive, moving, innovative, aggressive city council, and that's what I think we have. Well, here, anyway. Calamera. Let me hear it big and loud and wise in connection with your campaign.
Dr. Graham did not mention Watergate at all in his address to over 1,000 Presbyterians at the Sheraton Hotel today. Instead, he told of his recent crusade in Korea. He praised what he called the great work of the Korean Presbyterian Church and their great spiritual power. Following his address to the assembly, Dr. Graham visited with the young people at the gathering and then held a news conference. The first question asked of him concerned Watergate and his support of President Nixon, which he avoided answering except to say he is a Democrat. I asked him about a passage in the New Testament scripture which reportedly deals with the current Watergate scandal.
I used that as the text of my article in the New York Times about 6 weeks ago on the subject of Watergate. And it was Nehemiah 8:1-3, and I got it from the New York Times because Harrison Salisbury had come up with it from somebody and put it in the New York Times, and it was first time I'd ever seen it there, that Ezra and Nehemiah gathered the people together to read the law at the Watergate. And I would say it's a very appropriate thing right now that because of Watergate and all the things that are happening in the country and in the world, it's time to read the law of the Lord and get on our knees and repent of our sins and turn to God. We're living in a very dangerous hour.
Dr. Graham says he believes President Nixon will survive the current conflict and remain the president for 3.5 more years. Asked about the tight security at the hotel today, Dr. Graham said he was glad to see the policemen because they need religion too. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move in Fort Worth.
I think that I wish that the president had not decided that we would go into a freeze, but that he had taken more firmer action to reinforce phase 3. I don't think the freeze is going to wreck the economy or the country. I think that he does eventually want to go to the free market, but I just wish it had not been as drastic as a freeze.
Do you see phase 4 as being something between 1 and 2 or between 2 and 3?
Between 2 and 3, although I don't have any inside information from what Secretary Fiedler said. I think it'll be tougher than 3, but not quite as tough as phase 2.
The price of milk, my friend, is going up, at least somewhere. Dairy farmers have arranged for an increase in the price of milk to the tune of 7 cents per gallon. That is, if no increase is passed on to you, the consumer, at here, the retail level. We talked with Margaret Guy today of the County Extension Service, and we talked about not only the price increase, but who would be most affected and why.
Those families who have many children, probably, who are still between the ages of 2 and preschool, if they drink a lot of fluid milk.
Don't they have an out, though, to save money on the price of milk?
There are so many different kinds of varieties of milk on the market, and we think it's only the smart shopper who will take advantage of these. The evaporated milk, the dry milk, the other kinds of choices.
Mrs. Marilyn Stifer shops this store with a degree of regularity. Mrs. Stifer, you've heard the President's proclamation regarding prices. How do you feel about it, especially regarding dairy products?
Well, on the dairy products, I really am glad to see this come into effect because it seems like they've continued to spiral, and it was getting to the point where I was going to have to think of maybe powdered milk and maybe eggs only on Saturday and Sunday rather than throughout the week. So I really am entirely for it.
Well, it's kind of like Mrs. Stifer says. She's delighted that the President has put a ceiling on the prices at the retail level. But sooner or later, The price of this gallon of milk to the producer at the dairy is going to meet you, the consumer. This is Jim Mitchell, Channel 8 News on the Move.
Some crude oil that would go into Exxon tanks apparently will be going elsewhere as independents strike back at the majors. The major oil companies have always set the field price of crude oil. Recently, that's been $3.70 a barrel for what's called sour crude. But some independent refineries have been bidding 50 cents a barrel more. A matter of survival, according to independent producer Ken Farmer.
Well, as we understand it, the independents, of course, are getting shorted on both crude supplies and gasoline supplies. So in an effort to bolster their own reserves, i.e. with their own refineries, then they are outbidding the majors.
Farmer asked Exxon to match the 50-cent increase in oil that it was buying from Farmer, but got no answer. So the deal was made with an independent refiner at the higher price. But then Exxon added a new complication, since it owns the pipeline.
We're producing the crude and just putting it in our storage tanks. And it got to the point they would not give us an answer, so we elected to go with a independent refinery, which has a pipeline contract with Exxon. It happens to be OKC, refining, small independent. And they are willing to pay us $4.20 a barrel. And we were supposed to move the crude yesterday, or this morning early. And Houston called their gauger and told them not to run the crude. And as of, 2:30, we haven't been told why they refused to run the crude when they have the contract with OKC to run it to their station.
Farmer says he'll truck that oil if he has to, even though that adds 19 cents a barrel more to his cost. Apparently 3 other majors are holding out with Exxon against the price increase. It's reported the Exxon Board of Directors meets tomorrow to consider the matter. And remember that this all comes at a time when you can only buy 10 gallons of gasoline at an Exxon service station. This is Roger McDonald, Channel 8 News on the Move.
Here I saw a man pop up from behind the car here, just his head, and he was covered with blood. And he mumbled something I didn't hear, and I looked at him again, and he said, "Help me, I'm a police officer, I've been beat up, or I'm injured," or something to that effect. And I walked over to him, and he was just covered literally from head to toe just about with blood. And he said, he reiterated he'd been beat up. He was a police officer. I ran over the shack over here and had him call an ambulance.
Yes, I stated that to the legislature, that those would be reviewed by the board. I'd asked the Board of Pardons and Paroles to review those. I think one of the most important parts of that legislation is the fact that it does increase the penalty for those who are pushers or dealers in drugs, and will have the effect of removing them from the market, hopefully.
Have you decided what you're going to do about the 18-year-old adulthood bill?
Yes, I've decided, and that will be acted upon before the end of the week.
Can you tell us what you've decided?
No, I'm not going to comment on what I'm going to do on any of the other bills. I think we've decided on practically every bill by now. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
What happened this afternoon? What you saw?
Oh, some kind of looked like a gory, like a Franken.
occupation for so many years, there's the Korean War. And you know the story of the great Yongnam Church that fled from the north. He meant that out of suffering, then when Seoul was free, they moved back to Seoul, and today they have the largest.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm not sure that I can. Possibly answer that question. I believe that, for example, that tongues is
capable of in that regard.
And having momentous event for having him fever here today.
That sure makes us feel good here, doesn't it? Professor of Economics Department, School of...
Who has been one of the architects.
The American economy is in really very robust shape at the present time. It's certainly not what you'd expect. Rarely, if ever.
We could talk to you just a little bit about some of the bills you signed. The package of ethics bills.
I think they're very effective. Will be very effective legislation.
And everyone please rise. The 162nd Judicial District Court of Dallas County, Texas is now in...
Communication by long-distance telephone with them and their counsels with here, but I think that it's appropriate at this time to ask them to identify for the record and have understood.
Okay.
Y'all make it scratchy and pancake mix.
Go.
They got all wet.
What grade are you in, Tammy? I'm going in 7th.
All right, come on. All right,
No, Christopher,
all right.
my man, too.
Tony, you start.
Can you hold that for a minute while I go get some?
Well, you know what's surprising. You know, at the time the league leader Bill North he has 16 stolen bases, and at the time I only had 4. Now I'm only 3 behind. I have 13. He has 16. So, you know, like I was telling everybody, I was in a little slump. I had a bad ankle, and my timing was off as far as stealing bases. So, but now I'm running good, and I've only gotten thrown out 5 times, and I've run off about 6 in a row, and. You know, it's just a matter of your timing, and as far as I was concerned, it's just a matter of time before I'll be right back up there again.
You know, I've watched you every time you come to the plate. It seems like that first pitch, you always take it or you give a fake bunt. What's the deal? For a year and a half now, I've watched it. You know, if I was a pitcher, I'd always say, well, the first pitch is going to be a good because Nelson's going to take it.
Well, I'm trying to psych them up, psych them out. What happens is that the first time I try and get the third baseman in, you know, and I'll fake a bunt and try to get him in. That way, if I get another pitch right on the middle side of the plate in, then I can try to hit the ball by him, see, or if I hit a ball in the hole, it's tough for him to get there. And then later on in the game, he says, well, you know, Nelson's taking his first pitch, and I might be in there with a man on base in scoring position, and he might try to lay that first pitch in there, and then I'm going to jump on it.
I think the feeling's the same now, Jerry. You know, early in the season I didn't think we were quite getting it together, but I think the players are thinking more offensively now, like we were in '71, and we're scoring goals regularly. Although we are conceding more goals, I think you know, if we can outscore teams, this is. I think the players prefer to win this game. You know, this type of a game rather than the 1-0 game, and I think this is what we're doing this year that we did in '71.
Well, you're playing more exciting soccer. You're playing a different brand of soccer this year, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. I think we've got Mittick playing in midfield, and he's a very offensive-minded player. In the past, we've always had defensive-minded players in midfield. With Mittick playing there, I think he adds a lot more to the attack because he's always coming through from midfield, and he's scored three goals already this season, you know, from an attacking midfield position.
What are your thoughts now as you look forward to the weekend when you play Toronto on Sunday and then 2 days later you're playing Montreal?
Well, I think we've got to go up to Toronto and really get after them. We went up there last season, and a second game of the season, and they'd won 4-1 in Miami on their opening day. So we were kind of a bit afraid of them, I think, you know, and we played a defensive game and they beat us 1-0. So I think this year we've got to really get after them from the opening whistle, and I think we can beat them.
Complaints alleging that health studios force customers to lose more money than weight were aired in this first day of the 3-week inquiry. 3 female witnesses testified that they were pressured into signing long-term contracts with President's First Lady Spa. One woman was hospitalized as a result of exercises, and another said months of exercising did her no good at all. When they tried to be released from the contracts, they were refused and were continually harassed by collection agencies. An example of bait-and-switch practices was brought out by the court-appointed prosecutor Whitney Sessions. An enticing offer of 10 visits for $10 turned out to be a come-on for a $600 contract. Frank Newman, representing the First Lady Spa, said his client had thousands of happy customers, that these ladies simply didn't read the contracts they signed. The industry as a whole is legitimate, Mr. Sessions said, but stacks of complaints such as these indicate that some shocking practices are going on. Everyone will be better off, he promised, because of this inquiry. For Channel 8 News on the Move, this is Judy Hanna at the Dallas County Courthouse.
The Fort Worth Housing Authority and the people who live out here are justifiably proud of the renovation program going on at Cabell Place. The area never did reach the rundown level that Renee showed in his West Dallas report yesterday, but they did have worn-down floors, cabinets that were little more than apple crates, bathrooms that left a lot to be desired, just a generally undesirable atmosphere. The new renovation process turned all that around. There are now new, smaller, and better central heating units, new tile on the floors and bathroom walls. The kitchens have dishwater sprayers, cabinets instead of just stands, 220 wiring, and washer-dryer connections. The bedrooms have been dressed up, too, with special closets. And the bathrooms, for the first time ever, include over-the-tub showers. In order to inconvenience as few residents as possible, the cleanup is going on one building at a time, with the residents moving into fixed-up apartments as soon as they're ready. The only question in anyone's mind right now is, how long will they stay nice? But then tearing up projects has never been a very serious problem in Fort Worth. Jerry Taft, Channel 8 News, reporting.
When Channel 8's Betty Houseman and I dressed for work this morning and were eventually told of a group of Girl Scouts who were roughing it in a camp east of Dallas, we didn't realize how really muddy rough it was. But two of the campers, Tammy Starr and Brenda Elliott, greeted us with just what we needed to keep from getting bogged down on this story. The 17, 12 to 14-year-old girls in this camp are trying to earn their pioneer badge, and to do that they must spend a week living like pioneers. Tomorrow's their last day, and I think they've made it, since it's rained every day they've been here. Except for a few modern conveniences like matches and pancake mix, the girls had to build their own cooking facilities in privates. After all, they are still ladies.
We've made a shower and to wash our hands. We've made a place for that and a latrine and all that kind of stuff, and it's pretty convenient.
By camp breaking time tomorrow, the girls will surely have earned their decorations for, among other things, endurance and courage in the line of thunderbolts. June Gray, Channel 8 News on the Move in Mesquite.